Welcome to For Young People. My name's Marty Bolden. I'm the Director of the Office of Youth Services. And today we're very lucky to have Rona Zlockauer, who's the Executive Director of Media Power Youth. Media Power Youth is a phenomenal organization that really works to bring media literacy all over the state of New Hampshire, but was founded and started here in Manchester. So once again, we're really glad to have you here with us today, Rona. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've got going on and what's happening with your agency right now and some of the amazing projects that you're involved in.
Thank you. It's great to have this opportunity. As you know, we began as a program of child health services in 2000 out of concern from pediatricians and all of those staff working with children that media was having a bigger and bigger influence on children and reaching children at younger and younger ages. So those children who were exhibiting at-risk behaviors in their mid to late teens were now seen exhibiting these behaviors at 9, 10, and 11 years old. So we started this program. You were one of our early champions, and we appreciate that. And we are now an independent nonprofit. We still reside at Child Health Services, but we are statewide and working with regions all over the state to empower youth to lead healthy, safe lives through smart use of media. Part of that is influencing the media environment, but as you know, that is a very difficult task. So we have learned both from research and you know, you've worked with youth empowerment programs, that if we can equip young people with the knowledge and the skills that they need to be less vulnerable to media and to mitigate media's influence, that really is the most powerful of all ways for us to work.
You know, you and I have been talking about media literacy for a long time, but there are people out there that really don't understand the concept or haven't really heard of it before. A lot of parents who want to know, why is media literacy something I should be concerned about? What would you tell them?
Great question. Kaiser Family Foundation, who does more research on media than use of media than anyone in the world, recently came out with their third study called M2. M2 generation, and the reason we need to be so concerned is that we have always known that media is a teacher. It's a powerful teacher. I mean, it teaches us wonderful things. It teaches us what products are out there. It's always teaching something. And with the explosion of technology, children are now using, on average, age 8 to 18, 8.5 hours of media a day. With multitasking, that's 10 hours and 45 minutes. That's almost 11 hours of media a day. So if we agree that media is a teacher and very influential, look at how many hours children are spending in school, sleeping with their families, only a fraction of the number of hours that they're spending with media. Also, this explosion of media, personal media, iPods, and other personal media devices, iPhones and the technology, has made it such that we're no longer sitting in a family room using media together as when I grew up. Everybody's doing it on their own in privacy and out of the range of parents. So for the most part, we know both from research and also from working with parents that parents really do not know what media children are using. They don't know the content, they don't know how much media kids are using. And what we have also learned from this recent report is that the children who are using the most media tend to have the most problems, both with academically, socially, and have the least amount of personal contentment.
Wow.
So we know a lot more about media than we ever did, and there's so much more of it. We haven't even touched on the content, but we can talk about that later as we look at some of the media.
I just want to go back and underline a couple of the pieces of information you shared. One was that 8.5 hours, you said? 8.5 hours?
On average. The average age 8 to 18-year-old
8
is
years
using
old
media.
to 18-year-old.
Yes.
8.5 hours a day, either in front of a television, with a computer, on their phone. You know,
video games, internet.
Amazing.
Using screens of one kind or another.
And then you said with multitasking, it's like 2 more hours. Tell our audience a little bit about what multitasking is.
So you walk into your family room and your child is on the computer allegedly writing their English paper. They've got their iPod on with their earbuds. The Olympics or Celtics are playing in the background. Their cell phone rings, and while, of course, they're doing this English paper, they're probably texting, IMing, potentially emailing, although kids don't do that as much anymore. So there's all this media going on at one time.
So it's not a single media, it is a variety of media being used simultaneously.
Yes. So if you add all that together, it comes out to 10 hours and 45 minutes a day.
10 hours and 45, which is more time than most people spend sleeping. It's twice as much time as anybody spends in school.
Yes.
It's a lot more time than people spend with their families interacting without media.
Yes.
Yes.
So it's cause for concern. Another phenomena that is quite common we hear these days when we do parenting programs, and also from reading, is that everybody comes into the home at different hours, and everybody goes off into their own virtual space. So they're either texting or they're on their computers, and parents aren't necessarily an exception to that. They're not always modeling the best behavior to their kids. What's most important when you get in the house? Is it gathering everybody and having your family meal together with no media? Or is it a situation like we observe where everybody goes off into their own virtual space?
We have a couple nights a week in my family where we sit down and make sure that we have a family meal. Can't go to meetings, you can't do other things, like that's the family meal time. And one of the things that's interesting is that we don't even have music playing in the background while we're eating. And it's weird when you are in a media-free zone, how quiet the world becomes.
Yes.
You know, so like
sometimes everybody's not sure what to say or do.
Right.
Yes.
So I think one of the things that intimidates me when I think about it casually is the pervasiveness of media. But when you start talking about an 8 to 18-year-old being involved in some kind of media from 8.5 to 10 hours and 45 minutes, that is just, I think it's terrifying. And really, one of the things that you mentioned that I think is really important to parents is that a lot of that behavior is completely unchecked.
Well, it's unchecked, and it's also not only unchecked for content, but think about this. When you're talking with your kids and they're going to go on a trip, you want to know who they're with, where they're going, what's going to happen, when they'll be back, and generally what's going to happen, what is the purpose of this trip. When somebody turns on their cell phone or their computer or a video game, essentially a parent loses all control, unless they're with that child, as to where that child is, who they're with, what's going on, what's going to be the end result, what's being discussed. So we're sort of letting kids into these worlds unmonitored, unaccompanied, and without her even knowing what the end result is going to be. And one of the issues that's very serious is that guidance counselors, psychologists are reporting that kids come into school exhausted because they're using this technology well after the hours when they're supposed to be sleeping.
Right.
And so you have kids coming in falling asleep, sometimes upset because they've been texted or harassed or all during the night. So, you know, one of the things we tell parents during parent sessions is there's nothing wrong with setting rules and contracts before you buy technology with your child, the same way you would if you were going to give them access to a car or a job. You know, what are the ground rules here? And setting limits on when the technology can be used, how it's going to be used. And then we've had parents suggest that at night everybody gives their personal devices, cell phones, into a central location to be charged, and they pick them up and use them in the morning.
I like that idea.
Yeah, that nighttime period is turning into a big media time, media use time for
We'll talk a little bit
people.
more about that later, but one of the things I just really wanted to congratulate you on is that Media Power Youth has been going for just about 10 years now in Manchester.
Yes, yes, and it's been wonderful.